So thank you for joining me tonight, as I'm going to be doing what's kind of become a weekly chat at the moment, with tonight's topic being centered around spirit guides and the support that we have with our spirit guides. Um, so this is going to be our focus tonight, and looking at a few different, I suppose, aspects of our spirit guides. So firstly, just a little bit about me. For those that know me, I'm sorry, I'll always like to keep it a little bit brief, but just to introduce myself. So for those that don't know me, I'm Amanda Godfrey. I'm the one that started Mystical Dragon 15 years ago now, and I've been working in the spiritual industry over 15 years now, probably about 18 years. I've been working professionally, and for me, I started I've always, I suppose, been psychic and had psychic experiences for as long as I can remember. I have seen spirit. I was afraid of the dark growing up because of the things that I could see in it, but I didn't necessarily understand. So it kind of spurred me on my journey, my spiritual journey, to discover more, and to try and figure out, I suppose, how to understand it and how to cope with it, and ways to kind of control it, but particularly to understand it. And so for me, I was lucky enough to have a grandmother, one in particular that was very open to the spiritual world. Hello, I can still see lots of hellos. So hello, girls. Um, yes, my grandmother, I remember when I was young, we'd pop over to the farm. She lived in St Arnaud, which is a little bit outside of Bendigo. And every so often she'd pull out tarot cards and do a little tarot spread, or pull out her pendulum or her divining rods. And I remember being so thrilled when she used to do those sorts of things, and was always fascinated and drawn to that sort of thing. So even though I had a grandma that was, into those psychic things and really enjoyed them, and understood so much about them, she didn't teach me protection or how to develop these abilities, and couldn't really answer a lot of my questions in relation to all of that. So, like I said, it really kind of spurred me on my journey. But it did make things like seeing spirit a little bit normal as well, which I guess I was lucky on that in that regard. On the farm that Nan lived on, we used to see people that were from the gold rush era. Sometimes we'd see them still kind of fossicking, or different members of their family wandering around on the property still. And I did see my granddad a little shortly after he passed away as well, and things like that. So I have, like I said, had a lot of psychic experiences. And as part of that journey, it really led me to try and connect with my own guides as well. Um, and because I did start to learn, that wouldn't have been till my teens, but I did start to learn that there was such a thing as spirit guides, and that these were helpful to connect with. And so I did start to try and connect to my own spirit guides. And I do remember, it was probably in, I'd say I was around 14, 15. I remember hearing my name said really loudly, and I was trying to work out where it had come from. And it happened a few times across several mornings where I would hear my name. And then it shifted from hearing my name in this female voice, a very distinct voice, but there not being anyone there. It certainly wasn't mum or dad's voice. Um, and then it shifted to, I would hear the name Abigail. And Abigail is one of my, well, what I consider my life guide. It's one of my main guides who has been with me. She's the one that I have had a connection to for the longest. Um, so she's really been a big influence over me and really helped in many ways. So I also have quite a number of other guides that I am connected to as well, which I'll talk a little bit about as we chat about guides and our own guides, and the fact that we don't only have one spirit guide, which is, I see some people talk about having one spirit guide, but we actually have a team of spirit guides that work with us and work around us, um, and try and help to guide us and help to protect us, and help to bring healing and all the, I suppose, the messages and guidance that we need as we're kind of going along in life. So do know that you have a whole team yourself. All of us have a team. There is no specific amount of guides that make up this team, however. I've kind of come to understand over my years of working with guides and teaching and helping others with this as well, that I feel like that team is really individual. So it depends on you and where you're at the time as to how many guides you might have that are working with you in your team at the moment, or where you might have at any particular time in your life. Because we have different guides that are connected to, it's almost like they have different specialties. So they come in and out of our life as we need them for specific things. So, for instance, if you were doing nursing for so long in your life, you'd probably have some guides that were around you specific to nursing and healing and those kind of things that would kind of help you with that profession. But then if you moved on from nursing and perhaps, got really crafty and arty and started moving more into the creative side of things, then those guides that were working with you for nursing might all but step back, and you might have some more creative guides or a creative guide that might step forward instead and really start working with you more closely. So that would certainly change the amount of guides you would have and which guides that are working with you at that time as well. So please know that even with regards to how many guides we have working with us, at one stage I remember having this discussion quite a few years ago, and it was almost like, well, I've got more guides than you, and that's a better thing. I don't believe that either. I don't believe that, having more guides necessarily means we're any better or worse off than somebody else. Um, we have the amount of guides that we need that are working with us. And even when you have quite a few guides working with you, you won't always um, necessarily have a really strong connection with them. You might be aware that they're there, or you might have other people that connect with you and will tell you about some of the other guides, and you might have actually been quite unconscious about them up until that point. So please know we all have a number of guides. You will have more than one guide that is working with you, but it just depends on where you're at and what you need in your life at the moment. Just know universe is, infinitely clever in that. So it knows what we need, and they kind of put the right people in place, or the right energies and guides in place. So on that note too, it's worth mentioning that we have more than just people around us as spirit guides that work with us as well. We have, or we can have any kind of combination. I find that's really individual to us as well. So we can definitely have people that are working with us as guides, and we often will have at least a number of people, which may be ascended masters involved in that as well. We may have angels that are working with us. We may have animals that are working with us, the animal guides that come in and around and are working with us. We may have elemental energies as well. So energies like dragons, which I definitely have dragons. There might be fairy, there might be unicorn, there could be mermaid, there could be, the list is really quite long and endless as to the kinds of energies that we can have around us and working with us. Um, we can have people from different cultures that are working with us for a variety of different reasons. Lots of people seem to have Native American Indian guides that work with us at the moment, and maybe that's part of the ascension energy, and that a lot of those are needed. There's star being energies that can be working with us as well. There's people from our past lives that often will reincarnate with us as spirit guides as well. Um, and sometimes, but I will say it's just sometimes, we will have deceased loved ones that will also come through for us as well and decide to take on a role as a spirit guide. Now, I like to say just sometimes because I do find with deceased loved ones that they're often not guides. They don't have that official role as a guide. They might come around us and connect with us and just want to give their advice and to give some of their energy, but not necessarily under that official spirit guide title. but they certainly can still come back. You know, Nan can come back, all my grandparents come back and connect with me at different times, bring through messages and maybe give me some advice, or, you know, just give me that lovely, loving feeling being around, but they're not coming back in a spirit guide capacity. So a spirit guide, they kind of have that very official title, and they usually have to be of a certain vibration to be able to be a spirit guide for us, because by being a certain vibration, they can bring in that extra protective energy. They can bring in a better perspective for us, so they can see from a better perspective, so that they're able to give us really good advice, and help to guide us in our life. Whereas deceased loved ones, when our loved ones pass over, they do have a little bit of a higher perspective, but they often will still kind of have, you know, if grandma hated your boyfriend, she will often still have that dislike of your boyfriend and will still have that opinion. So they still have that personality aspect to them, whereas our spirit guides tend to have a higher vibration in regards to that, so that they can kind of see from, like I say, that higher perspective and that better perspective. Um, and that is where the spirit guide, there is a little bit of a difference, and sometimes it can be quite blurred because, you know, like I say, deceased loved ones do like to come in and to share their advice with us, but we just have to be really aware that often with deceased loved ones, it's their advice and it might not be a lot removed from if they were here physically, and so they might not have as high a perspective, but they're still coming in, they still want to bring their love and their compassion, and their thoughts on what's going on. But in certain circumstances, you might also want to check in with your spirit guides as well for their advice and their guidance in different situations too, and not necessarily just rely on that advice from grandparents, etc., if you're tuned into that as well. So please know there is a little bit of a distinction there. I do see that occasionally deceased loved ones do, it's almost like they, you know, do some schooling over in the spirit world, and they do kind of come back and can move into that spirit guide role. But I would say more often they just come back to connect with us and bring their advice, and they're not necessarily in a spirit guide role. So I hope that that makes sense to you guys. Yes, I'm sure you have, Kelly. I'm sure your grandparents have come back. I know a lot of grandparents and those that we're really connected with in life really often like to come back and connect in different ways and bring their energy, which is beautiful to have happen. Really beautiful. But our guides also have a connection to, it's like the blueprint or the plans that we had before we came in to this life, that they also have a connection to that. And so they also, our spirit guides, help us to kind of try and stay on track with that and to move in the right direction, and hopefully make some of the right choices to help keep carrying us forward in the things that we intended to do in this life. So I certainly believe we still have free will in relation to all of that, but our guides come in to help us to kind of keep going down the path and, um, you know, try not to have as many bumps and bruises along the path as we might otherwise have without their guidance and advice. Um, and also our guides don't stay with us necessarily our whole lifetime. So I mentioned I have a lifetime guide. So I believe that all of us have at least one lifetime guide, but we also have, our other guides can tend to be a little bit shorter term than that. So, um, so for instance, I also have a guide by the name of Rain, who works with me quite a lot, particularly with healing and protection and a lot of my magic work. Um, but I had a guide that was prior to him that worked with me for quite a few years and was around. And then this one day, that particular guide just said to me, "It's time for me to go. You've kind of developed to that point where I'm going to step back." And I was really shocked, and because it was one night in a meditation that he said this out of the blue, and we'd worked together for years, and he just said, "I'm going to step back," and didn't tell me why, didn't give me any explanation. And then the next day I had rain that came in, and I started working with rain. And after a little while, he actually, let me know it was almost like a graduation, so to speak, where the previous guide had done all what he considered all he could, and it was like the next guide was stepping in to help me with the next chapter of my journey in the energy work that I was doing. So, we can have that sort of a thing happen where one guide steps back and another one takes their place. Or as I mentioned earlier, just where perhaps something happens and we no longer need that particular guide or that particular energy. Oh, yes, I'll get into that, Tristan. So we can have certain things that happen around us that kind of help to show us with our guides as well. So um, in relation to our guides and communicating with them, so obviously meditation is a really great way to connect with our guides, and I really highly recommend any of the spiritual work that you want to do. Definitely meditation is a really good practice that is going to help. It's going to help with your spiritual, with any of your psychic and spiritual work. It helps to raise our vibration. It helps to relieve stress. It helps to clear our mind, because if there's too much clutter and too much going on in our mind, that's not going to help us to be able to get the communication that's coming through and the guidance that's coming through. So definitely meditation is a really great way to connect. But our guides, they work with us in lots of different ways, and it's once again it's a little bit individual because of one, how your psychic channels work for you. And our psychic channels, even though there's main psychic channels, there's lots of different ways those main psychic channels work. And so our guides will obviously utilize those to try and help bring messages through and to let us know that they're there and to give us signs and messages in our life. Um, and also, dependent on the guide, is the way that they like to work with you as well, what they like to do. So we can get actual physical signs and symbols around us from our guides, which is pretty awesome. So outside of meditation, we can have stuff. So things like you might find that you have a guide that loves to leave feathers, or particularly white feathers, around you. And you might find every so I know when that particular guide's around me because there's a white feather that's regularly left. I will find it at the front door. I will find white feathers in the most unusual places, and it's a sign I know that I've got a particular, perhaps an angelic guide that's working with me, or a particular guide that you've come to learn is connected with that white feather, and that's their sign to let you know that they're around. Or you might find that you have a guide that likes to bring you number sequences. There's a few of us that find, like 111 or 333 or your 222, whatever it happens to be. You might have a guide that's one of their things, to let you know that they're around, or to let you know that you're on the right track. I have a guide that likes to bring me the 111 or the 1111, and particularly when they're really strongly around and that they're kind of telling me, yep, you're on the right track, you're hearing me, you're on the right track, then I get a lot of the 111 or 1111 stuff that comes up as well. So you might find that. Your guides can also come through to you in dreams as well, and decide, rather than perhaps in meditation or in physical ways, they might come through and start speaking to you or bringing you messages in your dreams. So, pay attention, particularly if you've got that clairvoyant tendency and you've got a dreaming tendency. Pay attention to your dreams, and if you've got guides coming to you in that way. If you're a little bit more like clairaudient, where you hear a lot, you might find that it's through songs that you get messages. So you might find you catch bits of songs that just seem like the words are so relevant right there, that's the message that you needed. So don't ignore those, because that's your guides bringing those messages. That's your intuition that's working for you. Sometimes we can get it in pictures. You might find that for a period of time, when you're looking for signs or you're asking your guides for signs, that you keep getting a similar picture, or maybe a particular image that you keep seeing a lot. Don't throw this sort of stuff away, because it's those synchronicities that is your guides and is universe that's working with you to bring you the signs and symbols and messages that you need. So please don't throw this sort of stuff away. Pay attention to it. We've got to take the blindfolds off and the blinkers off and be open to the ways universe is bringing these and our guides are bringing these messages. So pay attention to these. Um, some people get to see physically as well, and as much as we want to see like that full-on apparition and know that that's our guide and see them and have full-on conversations with them, um, it's often not that way. It's often more like you might see colours, or you might see something out of the corner of your eye. You might get a streak of colour, you might see sparkles, you might see perhaps a coloured orb or something like that. You can have all of those things that certainly happen, um, and that can be your guides that are around you, or a specific guide that's around you that's trying to let you know that they are there and that they're around you. And obviously things like gut feelings as well. Our guides will often use our intuitive channels, so you might get those gut feelings, and that's how they're kind of guiding you as well, or even just letting you know they're around. So for a long time for me with Abigail, I went through a period where she started bringing me a physical sign, and this was partly because I asked for it. I'd read that this was something that you could do with your guides, is specifically request a physical sign, so I knew when she was around for clarity that she was there. And I actually got like this really interesting bubbly kind of feeling that would run down my spine, and it was unmistakable, like there was nothing else that could be connected to that. And so I always knew when she was there and she was really strongly present for me in different situations, I would get this really strong sign. And that probably lasted quite a few months. And it did kind of slowly got a little, it wasn't as strong and wasn't as strong until it just stopped happening. And I remember asking her a little while later in a meditation, why don't you do that sign for me anymore? And she simply said, because you don't need it. So, so do know they might start out bringing you a particular sign really strongly for a while, until, you kind of trust yourself and trust what you're getting, and actually start going, yes, actually, I do recognize that my guide's here. I do recognize that they're trying to guide me, or that there's messages coming through as well. So, please know there's lots of ways that our guides work with us, and we can talk to them all the time. I talk to my guides all the time, sometimes out loud, and I get caught having conversations with myself. Um, but, it does not hurt to have conversations with your guides and have conversations regularly. The more that we reach out and connect with them and talk to them, even if you're at that point at the beginning of the journey where you don't necessarily feel like you have a good connection with them, if any connection, it doesn't hurt to still talk to them regularly and be like, do you know what, I really want a connection with you. I want a really great connection with you. And I'm really open to the signs today. Please bring me some signs. Please bring me some messages today. What is it that I need to know today? Please show me. And then, kind of perhaps set off on your day. It's a beautiful way to start your day, is connecting with your guides and being open to their connection. And then we can get a bit busy with our day as well if we're not careful. But and you just kind of get caught up with stuff that's normal. But every so often you might find you suddenly snap back into, oh, is that a sign? Is that a sign? Yes, my husband has, we call it the bargain genie as well, Michelle. He has a guide that goes with him and kind of guides him to some of the bargains, which is excellent to have a guide that helps with those sort of things. So we can have guides that help us in many ways. We just have to be open to, this energy that wants to come in and to help us. It's not just with, when I'm doing psychic work or when I'm doing meditation. They can help us in so many different ways if we're open to it, and if we're receptive to it as well. So, it is just kind of slowing down a little bit, and allowing. And like I said, not getting too caught up in the busy, busy, busy. Um, so we can also, of course, use some of the spiritual tools that we know as well to be able to connect with our guides or bring through messages. So if you find you're still struggling a little bit, or there's just specifically when you're going through times that are, a little bit tougher, like I know at the moment with the lockdowns and everything that's going on at the moment, lots of people are really struggling, which is one of the reasons why I felt guided to do this particular topic tonight, so that we can kind of get more in tune with our team of support that's in spirit there for all of us. So know that, if you're finding it's really hard to get messages, then it is okay. We can actually use some of our spiritual tools like pendulums, like oracle cards, automatic writing. These are all really great ways um, to be able to tune in a little bit to our guides and be able to bring through messages in those times where we feel like we need something extra, or perhaps the stress is helping us to feel like we're a little bit more blocked. So, oh yes, there are parking space angels as well. Thanks, Sandra. Or parking space dragons. There's lots of the energies. If we ask them to help us with parking space, that will do that. Oh, Lisa, part of that will be Mystical Dragon. We do a lot of energy work there. We have a lot of classes that do meditation and energy work and things like that. So that really helps to build up the energy in a space. So that's why it's not always as easy to get the same effect with your meditations and things like that as at mystical as you do at home. Not to say it's impossible, but it's why most people can tend to slip into that energy quite easily at mystical. So just know, if you keep doing your own meditation and your spiritual work, try and do it in the same place regularly. So perhaps pick a chair or a particular room that you really like to do your meditation in, and that will also really start to build up that higher vibration for you in the same space. And you can even do things like having a particular shawl that you like to wrap yourself in to do meditation, because that shawl will start to take on some of that vibration too. And when you wrap, put it over yourself, it will help to slip you into that sort of an energy or high vibration as well, and assist you with your meditation. But it really is perseverance when it comes to meditation. It's that practice makes perfect. The more we do it, the better that we get at it. But there are other things too, like yoga. Some people find things like yoga, which kind of combine some of that body movement as well as the meditation essentially together. So there are other ways that we can kind of slow ourselves down. You might find that perhaps being out in the garden is more effective than being in the house. It's kind of seeing how meditation works best for you as well, whether a guided meditation works well for you, or that perhaps working with some kind of a chant works better. So it's also finding the kind of meditation that works best for you as well, that gets you in that space. And then you can be open to your guides being able to come through with messages and communicate, and have those kinds of connections for you as well. Ah, yes, I'm glad you enjoy a shawl as well. I did find particularly early on that doing that sort of thing was really quite a helpful tool for me too. And also, when it comes to tools, there's also crystals that we can use, which can be helpful as well to assist us in raising our vibration and connecting with our guides as well. So, um, crystals like clear quartz is a really good one because it raises our vibration and amplifies things for us. You can also use crystals like amethyst is another really great one. Angelite is a really lovely one, particularly if you feel like you've got angels that are working with you. That's a really good one. It'll raise your vibration, but it really connects in with the angelic realm. Rose quartz I always find is a beautiful crystal to work with for all your psychic work as well. Your heart crystals really help. Yes, crystals, of course, Audrey. Heart crystals always help when it comes to our psychic work as well, because we do need an open heart to work with these things, or at least that will really help that connection. And crystals like blue apatite is another really good one as well. So a lot of your blue crystals will work because they help on a communication level. So a lot of your blue crystals will work, and your purple crystals will work well when it comes to guides and helping to raise your vibration and assist that connection. So kind of see intuitively what you're feeling drawn to. But do know a big part of this is trusting ourselves and trusting our intuition, because we'll often be getting it. We'll often be getting the signs and the messages. It's just that they're not necessarily in our face and really loud, particularly at first. And so we might throw them away rather than actually trust ourselves and pay attention to them. It'll be like, oh, that'll just have been whatever, instead of actually paying attention to them. So, half of the battle is trusting our intuition, trusting the stuff that's coming through instead of writing off what we're seeing and what we're feeling as well. So do know that. When it comes to our team and the different kind of energies that do work with us, like I said, there's no hard and fast rules, but I do find that people that are really drawn to and have an affinity with angels will have a tendency to have quite a few angels around them and working with them. Um, People that are really drawn to dragons, for instance, like myself, will tend to find you have a number of dragons that are working with you. If there's a particular culture that you're really drawn to, you've probably both had past lives in that particular. So Egypt, for instance, I know I've had lifetimes in Egypt, and I've been drawn to Egypt, ancient Egypt, my whole life. So I've had both past lives there, and I have guides that are connected to Egypt as well. If you're a real animal person, then you will tend to find you have animals. And I have come across people that have more animal guides than any other kind of guide, because that's what they feel really comfortable with. And so they're surrounded by these different animal energies that bring them lots of messages, and lots of communications and healing and all of that. So, like I said, there's no real hard and fast rules as to, how many of what has to be in that group that works with you. It's about, what you need and what you need at the moment as well. Remember, it can change, as your needs change as well. So if you're going through a period where you're feeling, like you're really not coping, you'll probably have more spirit guides around you that are trying to help to nurture you and help to guide you through that process. So if you're feeling like, I haven't noticed anything, then like I was mentioning earlier, perhaps really try and make a conscious effort to say, hey, I really want to have this connection, and please give me some signs, please bring me some signs in my day today so that I know that you're there. And then be open to them and try and trust yourself as they come along as well. And take time, we have to take time to make that connection too. So take time for quiet time so that you can be quiet enough to hear them or to feel them or to see them, etc. Take some time with that as well. I did think to grab out, there is one book that I started fairly early on my journey with, which I found really great. Ted Andrews is a really good author, and his Meet and Work with Spirit Guides is a really good book. I didn't find it too hard going. Ted Andrews is one of those authors that's really quite an easy read. I love the way that he writes, and he has quite a number of books as well, um, on lots of different spiritual topics. But he's also got a number that are focused on the animal side of things as well. So if you're someone that feels really drawn to work with the animals, um, then that is definitely an author to perhaps have a good look at as well. At home, that was the only one of my spirit guide books that I have, because a lot of my books are at Mystical Dragon and make up the basis of our library that we have there for students to be able to use. But that was like I think that was probably the first one that really got me connecting with guides and doing all that sort of thing. So if you're looking for more information or a good book to get some more ideas, then that would definitely be one that I would recommend. So I'm hoping that's given you lots of ideas from some of the comments I've been able to see. I haven't been able to read them all, but it looks like some of you have been a little bit inspired. Does anyone have any specific questions on any of that, like working with your guides and different ways they're coming through? We usually stock quite a bit of Ted Andrews. Whether we've got that one in stock at the moment, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to check with Nolene, but we do usually stock all Ted Andrews books. Thanks, Audrey. So I definitely recommend doing that combination of both doing your meditation, as well as looking for the signs and symbols around you. And just being open to that connection is really important, trusting when you get things and not writing them off. And knowing that they're going to come in lots of different ways. It's not one set way. It would be nice if our guides just appeared to us, a very full on apparition, and we could have that full on conversation with them, but it's not how it works because they are in that spirit realm. So it's not quite how it works. Yes, I do believe that that our guides do have names, and if we ask them, they will bring those sorts of things to you. Sometimes I find the name can be a little bit tricky to come through for us, but just kind of you've just got to kind of persevere a little bit. I suppose the other thing worth mentioning that I find students do that can help hinder their connection is when we want it so badly and we're like, yes, I just have to have this, and we get into that mode because we have to be more relaxed and receptive, and this is not so receptive. This tends to, perhaps push them away a little bit. So we've got to try and relax and allow that connection as well. So do remember to relax into it. But definitely, if you ask them for their name, you can certainly get it. You might find that, connecting in meditation is the best way to find or to get a name. But then you can also ask for a sign that you've got the correct name once you've got a name too, to help verify for yourself that um, you've got the right name. That can also help sometimes too. Spirit guide drawing. So some people have the ability to see other people's guides. They'll tune in and see those guides, and they're talented enough to be able to draw the spirit guide as well. So they usually will pick up on one guide, perhaps is the strongest around you, and draw it. And usually they'll bring through some information about that guide for you too. Definitely going to a good spirit guide drawer can definitely be a good thing. I've had a couple done myself. Um, Spirit guide artists like Wendy Ishu is a really good one, and we have Laura Floyd that comes through and does work at Mystical as well. They're really good ones. There are quite a few that are really good. So if it's something you're drawn to, having an image of them can really help you to be able to connect even more into their energy as well. So that can certainly help with a connection. Oh, wow, Amanda. It's kind of hard to say whether Amanda says that when her father passed, there were 7 people that filed in and stood against the wall just before he died. Would it have been his guides? It's hard to say if it would have been his guides or it could have been other family members or other people that were connected with him that were coming in to kind of help him in the crossing. So it's kind of hard to say specifically whether it would have been guides or other energies in spirit that were just coming to help him with his crossing over. So how amazing that you were able to experience that. Oh, wow. Okay, and Alison's asking about her daughter who keeps seeing twinkling lights or colour in her room and thinks she sees an animal person but's getting a bit scared. Yep. good that you're really open to talking to her about it because kids are really receptive to this stuff as well. Um, I think just keeping the communication open there and keep reassuring her that it's not nothing scary. I have the same. Jaden is 7, and he has little bits and pieces that happen, and he gets scared as well. So it's just trying to keep reassuring them and keep the communication open and letting them know there's somewhere that they can talk about these things when they see. But definitely, I feel like that is a guide that's coming through for her, and certainly nothing to be scared about. So it's great that she has you, Alison, to be able to talk to about this and kind of open up a bit more to that experience as well. Oh, yes, that's beautiful, Audrey. You're very lucky to have all your grandmothers that come in the way that they do and so strongly as well. Oh, wow, Lorraine. So Lorraine says she keeps seeing planes when she's out walking, and her husband, who is now passed, used to be a pilot. Yes, I would guess that that probably would be a sign that he's around for you, definitely, especially if you're seeing them a bit and it makes you think of him. Absolutely. I would suggest he's letting you know that he is around you for sure. Silvana, yes, you can. Trees actually have an energy within them that are called a dryad. That's like a tree spirit, and certainly you can have those kind of energies that decide to come through as guides. So you probably had some kind of past life connection or some magical kind of connection, and they're coming through with you again. So certainly they can come through as guides, definitely. Candles help? Well, yes, I always find candles are helpful for lots of things, especially really shifting the energy. Oh, beautiful. I'm really glad people have been finding tonight helpful. Beautiful. Audrey asked, do you feel if someone drew your spirit guide and you didn't feel it resonated with you, that maybe you were blocking the help from your guide in some way? Yes, certainly. It's really possible. So if you found that you weren't resonating with an image that someone did, I would do some meditation and really sit with it as to whether I was actually blocking that connection with that guide. Perhaps there was some part of me that wasn't feeling ready to connect with that guide and that energy that they want, that they're coming or preparing to bring through for us, or whether perhaps that particular artist um, maybe they were having a bad day and they didn't draw a guide that was connected to you, but definitely it could be that there might be a block there for you and a reason why you're kind of rejecting that energy. You just might not, there might be a part of you that's not feeling like you're worthy or that you're ready for that energy to come in. And so might be why you're not necessarily feeling the connection. Oh, that's wonderful, Amanda. Beautiful. The role of a gatekeeper. So Madonna's just asked about the role of a gatekeeper. So one of the types of guides that we certainly can have is what's known as a gatekeeper, and a gatekeeper is one of our guides that actually helps us. I find I use a gatekeeper most often with the channeling work that I do. So my gatekeeper makes sure that only the right energy, the high vibration energy that I'm going to channel and work with on that level is allowed to actually come really close to me. So they're a really strong protective guide that really helps to determine what energy is allowed really close to you and particularly to channel and do that sort of work. So gatekeepers usually have, yeah, very strong protective energy, and they have very strong boundaries, and they help you in having those boundaries and to really take care of you and to keep you safe. Oh yes, yep. The song references is quite common, I find. Yeah. Yes, like a spiritual bouncer. Thanks, Audrey. But yes, yes, Beth, the song references is a big one. I find lots of people actually get bits of that, but not everybody recognizes that it's, our guides bringing messages through for us. So I often like to mention it because I have lots of people that have epiphanies that's how their guides have been working with them. So you can either hear it on the radio or hear it on perhaps a CD, that resumes or something like that, or have a song pop in your head, or that you wake with a particular song, or a song gets stuck in your head, or part of a song gets stuck in your head. Alison's asking, do you think the same guardian angels or guides can shapeshift to come in different forms? Yes, especially some of them. So, like dragons are one of those energies that I do find tends to shapeshift. So they can start presenting one way and then change. Um, Dragons change form, so they are a shapeshifter. But some guides actually do present one way. It's almost like they don't feel like we're ready to see their true form. I've had this happen with light beings or star beings as well, where they present human at first, and then down the track it's like they show their true form, and so you see that light being form or whatever it happens to be. So yes, definitely sometimes I do think that they they will shapeshift, so they'll show us one form perhaps at the beginning and then show us a different form or a more true form later on. And that is to do with, I think, that we're not ready to see um, perhaps what they really are. So definitely, I have had lots of experience with that, not just personally, but with students as well, having that happen. Beautiful. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for coming along and sharing with me tonight and for all your great questions. I hope I've been able to answer um, everybody's questions sufficiently. Yeah, we're at about the 50-minute mark, so I am going to wrap it up here, guys.